Hi there, welcome back to Artisans Alley. We're here at the Vernon Community Arts Centre today with artist extraordinaire Daniel Stark. He's a talented artist, musician, and one of my heroes. Welcome to Artisans Alley, Daniel.
Yeah, thanks, Pat.
Thanks for coming.
Glad to be here.
What are you going to do for us? What are you going to do with us back here in the alley today?
I'm going to show you how to make a pinch pot out of my favorite clay.
And what is your favorite clay?
This clay here is from a mountain in southern Alberta where I used to work as a fire lookout. Mm-hmm. And I dug it myself, put it in a knapsack, hiked it up to the lookout, drove it back to Vernon, and I probably gathered it about 25 years ago. Clay doesn't go bad. And it's my favorite clay. It's a rare clay.
I like the feel of it too.
Yeah, it's people don't understand and probably doesn't really show on camera, but all clays are different. And like Vernon's local clay is an earthenware clay, which is very, very, very sticky and like a gumbo. And when you get stuck in it, you get more stuck in it because it's thixotropic, which means as it jiggles, it becomes more fluid.
Right.
It's this unique
what do they
property.
call it? Swelling clay.
Yeah,
right?
Thixotropic.
Yeah.
Or gumbo. And
okay.
Years ago, I tried to make pottery out of Vernon clay.
From Pottery Road?
Yes, from Pottery Road. Before there was all the houses on Pottery Road, I went with my Volkswagen van in 1980 and dug, I don't know how many van loads of clay and dried it all out and processed it and tried to make raku pottery out of it at my mountain fire lookout where I worked. I didn't have much success. And I always wanted to do stoneware clay in a wood-fired kiln at a higher temperature. And I used to hike every day or often at the lookout. And I would go past a very small area of brownish dirt. And south of Blairmore, west of Pincher Creek, the mountains there are coal mining mountains. There's coal seams in the rock, lots of gray limestone, almost above tree line. But there was this kind of an ochre patch of ground, maybe the size of this table, literally. And when it rained, it looked a bit different. And I went to this lookout for many seasons in a row, and I always looked at this patch ground and wondered, is that clay? Nah, clay runs off a mountain with the water, doesn't it?
Usually.
Finally, I bent down and touched it on a rainy day and went and put some in my knapsack and took it back to the lookout, stomped on it with my Vibram Soles hiking boots, and put it through a window screen because half of it was rocks. What was left was beautiful clay. It has grit in it. It's just the right plasticity. It looks like chocolate.
Do you need to add grog to this?
No.
No, it's just the perfect clay.
This is just perfect. And then I tried firing it to different temperatures, and I found out it was a stoneware clay. But in some kilns, it got blisters in it. And I couldn't figure out why. So it took a number of years of putting it in different kilns and realizing that it had to do with the speed of firing. If it goes up slow, it wouldn't blister. If it went up quick, it would. And that's probably because there's organic matter in it. Mm-hmm. And I was just remembering this morning, about 50 feet from this little pile of clay, I found a broken arrowhead once. And this is on a mountain in the middle of, there's nothing around. And I found a broken arrowhead on top of a gravel bed. Just a small one. Gold and brown with black stripes in it. You could see through it, kind of. And it was the early days of cell phones, and I phoned Head Smashed In Buffalo Jump Museum, which is in the south end of the Porcupine Hills. And I asked them about it. They said that arrowhead would be from Yellowstone Park area.
Really?
Because it was obsidian from there. Mm-hmm. And it was just laying on the gravel. behind a hill, where the wind blows past, and behind this hill was this arrowhead. And it would have been just, if you went hunting out there in the mountains and got an animal, behind the hill is where you'd want to be, because it's very windy there. This is where all the windmills are. So it's just a magic spot, and I got this clay. And I haven't used it too much because it's kind of precious, but it's about time in my life where I use it up and make some things.
Stop saving the special candles for special occasions?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hear you.
So I bought it for Artist Alley.
I feel very special.
And
so you may not have even noticed, but as he speaks, Daniel's been doing the pinch pot method to create a tea bowl, of which he makes a very amazing array of shapes, sizes, and varieties. But it's a second nature to you while you're talking to start. You do this in the bathtub sometimes, right? With the board over the bathtub?
Yes.
This is your soaking?
Yeah.
Because it's so contemplative, right?
There's that. It is that. And sometimes it's hard to get time to get right into the studio and do stuff.
Yeah.
I've got to sit down and throw 5 dozen tea bowls for the next.
Yeah.
And years ago, I found at night, before going to bed, I could take a lump of clay and pinch a tea bowl, start of a tea bowl, put it on my bedstand overnight, a Scott towel over it, and in the morning, wake up, turn it over on the stiffened top, and make a foot on the bottom. Now, I'm not actually making one really right now. I'm just giving the idea of how simple it was to do, and meditative and fun. And then after a month, you had 30 bowls, and they were all different. They were all unique and had something about the moment, a moment of my life in them, and I fired them in a variety of glazes, and they're all around the world now in different places.
And while you have an electric kiln at your studio,
I do.
You
yes.
also built an anagama kiln on a mountainside outside of Vernon. Can you tell us a little bit about what an anagama kiln is?
An anagama kiln, anagama is Japanese for big hole.
How apropos.
In the 16th century or so, in Japan, they were making pottery with a big hole, dug in a hillside at an angle, different angles, and the fire would go through this hole and then out a chimney. The fire would race past all the pots that they would stack in, and they would go to a temperature high enough that the wood ash, which is a mineral, collection of minerals, would melt on the pots. Now, they weren't dipped all the time in an even glaze. They would sometimes be, one side would be melted and the other side wouldn't. So the marks of the pots showed the action of an atmospheric event, a fire. And to me, the entire, there's more to this.
Sure there is.
Yes.
Yeah.
The tea ceremony and Buddhism and Zen Buddhism and what a lot of people, when they think of Zen Buddhism, tea ceremony, matcha tea in the bistros these days and coffee shops, the inception of that has to do with an aesthetic appreciation which occurred in around the 16th century, where they were getting pottery from these primitive kilns, and the pottery was not machine-made looking.
Not uniform.
Not uniform.
But handmade. The hand of the marker was there.
It was handmade, maybe by kids in Korea, for rice bowls. But these people had this perception of it as being beautiful. And they took the tea ceremony, which previously had been a militaristic kind of ritualized way of having tea that was rather ornate. Mm-hmm. And people don't realize it was rather ornate. And then there was a Zen master named Ikkyu, And he's really a fascinating story. He was the illegitimate son of the Emperor of Japan. And he was put in a Zen temple for zillions of years and grew up and practiced Zen. And at some point, became enlightened. He refused his certificate, walked out of the place, and began walking around all of Japan, drinking wine, eating meat, having sex, partying, whatever. I mean, he engaged with the local people, straw sandals, played a shakuhachi flute.
Left the monasterial life.
Left that whole scene, engaged with real people, and kind of thumbed his nose at the establishment, wrote a poem every day in exquisite brushwork and threw it away. His followers collected them. There's 1,000 poems left. But what I'm trying to say is he inverted the aesthetic appreciation of ornate, fancy stuff to an appreciation of just kind of like a poverty aesthetic.
Organic and handmade.
Just, well, it was...
And not
it was,
elaborate.
Yeah, it was just something about like simplicity, nature, not ostentatious, not putting on airs, just what we now kind of, some of us know as just chop wood, carry water,
Sure.
Simple. His disciples started the raked gardens, the raked gravel gardens that are with the rocks sticking out. Like one of his disciples started that. And another guy reframed the tea ceremony from the ostentatious thing to a primitive hut with mud walls and local dishes from wherever they were from, selected for what he could see as their beauty. So these tea masters started selecting for what they thought was beauty, and it was a different
celebration. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a different look on it all, different take on it all. The words are usually called wabi-sabi, which I sometimes call wobbly-sabi. They're often maybe a bit cracked, or they're asymmetrical, or there's kiln scars on them at that time, and some of them are very famous. And
then there's kintsugi.
Kintsugi is when things break and they repair them, maybe with a bit of gold, because they still value
They embrace the imperfection.
They embrace the
and
imperfections.
emphasize it.
Yeah, enlightenment wasn't about becoming perfect. It was about embracing. There was something about it.
Yeah.
And I was very fascinated with that. And the kiln of that time was an anagama, very inefficient kiln. High temperature, inefficient, kiln accidents galore. Not everything turns out well. But because of that nature of that firing, a lot of things come out that are just different. So in my kiln, the fire goes through the kiln, and wood ash builds up on the pots, and then at about 1250 degrees centigrade, or 22 Fahrenheit, 2200 Fahrenheit, when things are yellow-white hot, the minerals of the ash actually melt, and they cry like tears, some people say. It melts on the pots. So here's some. This is melted ash going across a plate. There's more here than here. This side got more ash than the other side. And the other side
Oh my word.
got more color.
Mm-hmm.
And you open the door every now and then and throw more wood, fresh wood in, and sometimes things cool a bit, contract, expand, and they got some cracks. They don't go all the way through. It's got some scars here from seashells, which this was resting on seashells. Seashells are calcium carbonate. They disappear after the firing. But you can see the effect of fire on this surface. I love this surface.
I do too.
I just love this. It's not me doing it. And that's back to the Zen aspect of the thing, is relinquishing your egoic intents and designs and kind of letting nature be it. There's a book that was very influential in ceramic world in the 70s called The Unknown Potter. sort of like the unknown soldier. But
It's the alchemy that happens when the art is doing its own thing.
yeah,
Right?
so the potters are
Here.
kind of trying to step out of the way and let nature just present itself. And wood ash, this is apple ash from the Okanagan mixed with something, and it melts. It runs down the side. It's a glass. There's a lot of silica in it, and it melts down the side. So this is Okanagan apple ash mixed with a small percentage of clay from the roadside in Golden, BC.
I like that shape a lot too.
And these two pieces here, rather this one, and this one and this one, these are from this clay. This is wood ash melted on top of this clay at a higher temperature, and then this is on the other side. I fired this twice, so the second time the seashells started to run like glaze. And this is the brown clay, which I really quite like, the look of when it's fired. This is brown, the clay without so much ash on it, but enough that one side is shiny, one side isn't. And it's fired high enough that you can drink out of it. It's vitrified, it's glass. This is a grinding bowl I made out of the clay, nothing else on it. This is wood ash hitting the pot on this side more than this side.
I was reading about those kilns and the design of them, and that sometimes the maker creates deliberate channels for the flame to go through.
That's
and
right.
then when you're setting up the kiln load, you choose
You choose.
who the flame is going to kiss.
That's right. So I don't have, well, these bowls here are from my anagama and made out of the
yes.
mountain clay. There's a little brush painting of my fire lookout on the bowl. This is glaze, but this is the clay. And this is something that was really important to me, still is the look of the bare clay. Most people, when they make pottery, they cover the clay with glaze, and they're interested in the glaze. And I'm very interested in the clay. Now, some people can put a pot in a kiln and then get it out, and it looks quite something. And then you look at the ring, and it's just white clay, smooth, white.
Vanilla.
Vanilla, white bread, or whatever, clay. And you don't really, there's a word in Japanese, A-G-I, it's pronounced aji, and it means the taste of clay. You can really see some stones in it, maybe, you can just feel that it's from the earth and it's dug. This is also from the Anagama kiln, little brush painting of me walking in the hills. And the local clay, some nice pinks on the glaze. This glaze is called a Shino glaze. It's from the Shino family, popular in tea ceremony, pottery. And I was really very happy with these pieces because blue Shino, kind of a bluishness, is very rare. And it happened in the back end of my kiln where I thought, I didn't think it was going so well back there, but when I opened it up and unloaded the kiln and got to the back of it, it is 12 feet long, so there's 9 feet of stacking space.
And how long is the firing schedule for that? Like how long do you keep
fired for
stoking the fires?
4 days and nights. It's very inefficient, as I said.
Wow.
4 days and nights to get ash to build up. Otherwise, it's light ash. Everybody's firing for different kind of ash buildup.
But the placement in the kiln makes a large difference in how much it gets.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
how hot it gets.
Yeah. And the color of the clay. It can be kind of white. This is not my mountain clay. There's another clay, but I mixed some stuff in it to get a little bit of speckling at least. And a
Very
couple
successful.
Seashell scars, because in the kiln it has to rest on seashells to keep from sticking to the shelf.
Or the glaze will melt.
Yeah. Or the wood ash gets so honey-like and sticky-like that things can stick together, and you get scars.
I love the mark making that you do on these, as well as the texture on that one.
Yeah, me too. And then This is the flame going through underneath the plate. One side gets more ash. It moves past some seashells that are holding it up. A little bald spot here and color here. And that's the serendipity nature of that kind of kiln. So I quite like that. So I built this kiln years ago, and it turns out it's very hard to fire. 4
Who
days,
knew, right?
4 days and nights. I optimistically thought that I'd be able to fire it every couple months using off-cut wood from local log builders in Lumbee. And I fired 2 or 3 times. I fired once in January in the middle of winter, once in June, and other times. But it was much harder than I thought. And
Is that something you can do during all our no burn times?
I was just thinking of that. No.
No.
So
Because we can't do alternative
the
firings
other
here in the
limitations,
summer now either.
I'm on Silver Star Mountain. I did build my kiln in the trees.
What was I thinking?
I had wanted to put it somewhere else, but
Yeah.
so yeah, I would only fire in the off season of fire season.
So it's 4 solid days of
4 solid
feeding
days.
that
And
dragon.
fire squirts right out the chimney. Like fire goes right through 25 feet from the firebox, goes through 9 feet of pottery, then a chimney, and it comes out. And the flames go right through the whole kiln, and they make marks on the pots. So I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis some years ago, and my ability to be physically active was compromised somewhat, and then I had children. And more recently, I've built a smaller wood-fired kiln that I can fire more frequently. And it uses, rather than 4-day firing, this one I can fire in a day. And what it does, these pots here are fired in it. And it is a kiln, it goes up to the same temperature as the wood kiln, and it's fired with wood as well. But the coloring is more to do with the fact that you throw some baking soda in. Baking soda, sodium chloride, sodium bicarbonate. The sodium mixes with the silica of the clay and makes glassy-ish surfaces on the clay. As the fire moves, the fumes of the soda move through the kiln. So the apple ash glaze here, this is the raw clay, and the fire hits this side, a bit more shiny here, not so shiny there. So you still get some more random.
These are the ones that came out.
These are
last
my
month?
most recent firing, and I collaborated with Roberta Sutherland, Pick Sutherland. She came to town and said, "Can we collaborate?" She was working at the Catani Art Center. She said, "I'd like to decorate some tea bowls with you." And I said, "Well, yeah, I have 40 or 50 bowls that I've pinched last winter, funnily enough, in the bathtub." Because I found it's pretty nice in the winter to sit down in the tub and just reach over to grab a lump of clay, and just like I'm doing now, make a pot in the tub, and then put it on a board and make another one and another one and another, and in the morning finish them. So I did that just kind of like this.
I love the collaboration you did. I got to see those the day they came out of the kiln when you brought them to the Artist in Residence show.
Right.
And it was quite a startlingly beautiful array of shapes, sizes, designs, and even the ones that weren't glazed in the middle and were glazed in the middle. And very impressive.
I was kind of, I wouldn't say shocked, but I still am kind of puzzled at the effect of looking of them, because I don't know how to describe it. When you're pinching a bowl,
Tell us what you're doing when you pinch a bowl.
yeah, okay, I'm just going round and round. I could start another lump. There's nothing like precious about this. We can wedge it all up. There's something funny about pinching. People always want to bypass it and get